This is the Budget Minded Traveler Podcast, episode 33.
Welcome to the Budget Minded Traveler Podcast, your source for the tips and tactics that will inspire and equip you to travel the world. And the best part, it won't break your bank. And now, the Budget Minded Traveler herself and your host, Jackie IRL.
Hey guys. We're so grateful to Osprey Packs for partnering with us and supporting the podcast, so please stay tuned for more about them later on. I have an opportunity for you to join me in real life for some real travel. Here's the latest Jump Adventures update. We are going to Greece for a bike and boat island hopping adventure this May 9th to 16th, 2025, and we still have space left. Check out jumpadventures.com to learn more and book now. We're going to have a yacht all to ourselves with ensuite cabins on board, so you get to sleep in the same bed every night as we start in Athens and make our way west toward the island of Corfu. You'll have your own bike for the week, e-bike if you want one, for cycling the islands as we go, in between meals crafted by our private chef on board, and all the relaxing you want to do on the top deck under the Mediterranean sun. These bike and boat adventures are our most carefree and relaxed trips. All you have to do is say yes and show up, and there's still space. Head over to jumpadventures.com to grab your spot now, and we'll see you there. Guys, happy 2015. If you are listening to this in the future, it's January 9th right now, and this is the first episode I've done in 2015. So hopefully you guys all had a good time ringing in the new year, and happy holidays to everybody. I actually started the new year with a cold, which is like awesome. Happy New Year to me. But I'm back and rolling now. And we have an awesome guest today. His name is Sam Cornthwaite, and he actually ran into him totally randomly. I think we actually connected on Instagram of all places. And it turns out he lives here in Bozeman of all places. And then I saw him in person and we started chatting about traveling, and this conversation ensued that was just like, hold on a second, this needs to be, we need to talk about this on my podcast. And so we had been talking about just what happens when you fly, and the airlines lose your luggage. And he has been everywhere and used to travel a lot. And so he had a ton of stuff to say. I was like, pause, let's do this on the podcast. So anyway, he is here today to share with us about what to do when the airline loses your luggage. And what I love about this subject is that you don't have to be traveling internationally for this to happen to you. You could literally be traveling across the state or just across the country or whatever it is. But anybody who flies needs to hear the information in this episode. So I'm really happy that we did it because we really got into some good stuff, not just unpacking, so to speak, what happens when the airlines lose your luggage, but also what opportunities can come out of what happens when the airlines overbook flights and they need to bump somebody. So we're going to get into all of that good stuff today. So why don't we just get right into it? Here we go. Hey, Sam, how's it going today?
Great. How are you doing today?
I am so good. Thanks for asking. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. I'm really happy to have you here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
And so the reason for this interview / conversation is because we kind of just started, chatting about this once. And I thought this needs to be on air. Like other people need to hear us talking about this conversation. And so that's why you're here. And again, thanks for being here. And so before we get into kind of the meat of it, I want to give you a chance to explain to the listeners who you are and where you come from.
Absolutely. So my name, again, is Sam Cornthwaite, and I'm the Executive Director of GoodWorks Orphan Care. We're a Bozeman-based orphan care organization, and that's, one of the great reasons I get to travel is because we do business over in China and then other places across the globe as well.
That is so awesome. And you used to travel quite often, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I used to be a speaker and I would go around speaking for different youth organizations. And so I had the opportunity to travel usually about 30,000 miles a year, sometimes more and sometimes just a little bit less.
Okay. That's awesome. Which is also what gives you such experience in airlines and airports and airlines losing your luggage.
Absolutely. There's been a time or three of that happening.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I would love for you to tell some of the stories that you have about airlines losing your luggage and what that looks like and how that makes you feel.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the biggest things is I've traveled quite a bit now to where I'm no longer surprised when my luggage is lost. And so it's one of those that, when I find out my luggage was lost, I immediately go into negotiation mode. But, I would say the most adventurous story, I was flying over to China and I had arrived and I don't normally check a bag when I fly there, but I did this time. And I arrived and my bag did not. And I'm not sure quite what happened, except for I know that instead of being in Beijing, my bag was in beautiful Monterey, California.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was interesting, and I was like, oh, well, it'll get here tomorrow. And so I called the next day, and no word. And then the next day, and no word. And 6 days later, I finally heard, oh, we found your bag.
Oh, my
It's
gosh.
in Monterey, and we put it on the soonest plane to Beijing.
They didn't even find it for 6 days?
Nope, they had no idea where the bag was.
What airline was that? And what year was that?
That was on United.
It was.
As much as I hate to fault them.
Oh, I know.
But, yeah, so that was on United.
And what year was it?
It would have been 2011.
11, so 3 years. Okay, maybe let's hope they've gotten better.
I haven't had near as many major experiences since then. So I think they got a little better.
So did your bag, how long did it take you to finally get your bag then?
So it took 7 days for my bag to get there. But, one of the things I will say, and again, I fly United almost exclusively. Mm-hmm. And one of the most interesting things about it, though, is, well, yes, it was unfortunate that they lost my bag. United has been the only airline that has worked with me to help basically right their wrongs.
Oh.
And what they ended up doing was they gave me a $650 voucher for basically just the inconvenience of losing that. Plus, They told me to go and purchase clothing, keep my receipt, and then they actually sent me a check for the expenditure, basically, of my clothes that I had to buy.
This is amazing. Really? Like, that's customer service. I mean, if you're going to wrong somebody, then you should write it.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that United tends to do that more often than other airlines, whether it's, missing or not necessarily missing a flight, but a canceled flight or losing a bag. I'm usually pretty expectant that they will do something to make it better.
Yeah, I definitely have questions for you about that. But so one time I was actually traveling to Italy and I was planning on being there it was open-ended. It was a one-way ticket. I knew I was moving there. So I had like a suitcase and my backpack and like I don't even remember what it was, but it was with American. I definitely remember that. And when I arrived in Rome, I found out that my bag went to Denver. And at least they knew it right then, but still it took them 5 days to get the bag to me, which is really surprising. But they also didn't offer me anything. And I mean, here I am in Rome, like I'm literally, I can't, like we moved there and tried to find jobs, we weren't there to spend money. And I was afraid to spend money on clothes because I didn't know if I think I had gotten sick and my brain wasn't functioning right and I didn't want to look into the insurance and I kind of didn't want to deal with anything, but American never stepped up. That's my point,
Wow.
And so I was literally washing my clothes in the sink at night and wearing them again the next day. And,
Absolutely. I've done that a lot.
Yeah, that's not a good situation to be in. So
Definitely
going back to what you said, I really want to know what your steps are. Like the moment you find out, because it happens. When the airlines lose your luggage, you go into negotiation mode. What does that look like? And what are the steps that you take to make sure that they're going to pay?
Absolutely. Well, the number one thing is to always call them. And you can always go up to the customer service desk, but I'll tell you, I have found a lot more use in giving United a call. And so whether it's using Skype if you're international or just, using your phone and calling them domestically, always call them first. And, definitely register it with the desk. The ground team is the one who's really going to be making it happen. But letting the people know, basically, it's like starting a timer when you give the phone call. And always be sure to have, a Mileage Plus account or, a One World account, whatever it is, always have an account. Because once you call, when you make a claim, they put that in the computer. And so you always want to be immediately getting in contact with the airline and letting them know that, A, you're not happy. Because it's frustrating. It's a time that, you're supposed to be carefree and sometimes lackadaisical, and you're making it really difficult.
No kidding.
Simply because you don't have your suitcase. Mm-hmm. So I would say, number one, always get a hold of the airlines on the phone. When I had that experience, I was a Premier member, and so that was really nice. You have the Premier line.
Yeah.
And so being able to get a hold of someone stateside is also really important. Simply because they care about you. They want to make sure that you're having a good experience. And so a lot of times they'll actually just give you a direct line to someone who will basically advocate for you.
Okay.
So get a hold of the airlines is number one. Two, find someone else to advocate for you. Just so you don't constantly have to keep calling.
Okay.
One other thing that I did was I would always call once a day just to check up. And again, I wanted to show that I'm in a hurry for my bag, that I want my bag soon.
No kidding.
So I would definitely call them once a day. And then once your bag arrives, that's when your real negotiating power comes in. What I found is that for every single day I miss, I expect $100.
Wow.
That's just an expectation. And if they don't make that, I will constantly ask for whoever is above them. So I'll ask for their boss. And then if their boss doesn't do anything, I'll ask for their boss's boss.
Wow.
But $100 a day is fair, I think.
You are good.
Well, like I said, it's been a couple times and it takes some practice.
Okay. So why does the negotiating not start until you get your bag? Like what's the logic there?
So first and foremost, you don't want to sell yourself short. So if you agree to $300 and it took 6 days, you're not getting as much as you could get. So I always wait to do the negotiation until you receive the bag. And the other thing is that a lot of times, the attendants who you're talking to on the phone won't really do a whole lot with you when it comes to negotiation until the bag's arrived.
Oh.
And so they want to make sure that your bag gets to you first and foremost. And then after that, that's when they'll start to think about, okay, how do we right this wrong?
Right. Okay. That does make perfect sense. So then how many times have you been able to do this?
Well, every single time I've lost a bag, with the exception of the one time I flew Delta and lost my bag. So I would say probably 6 or 7 times.
And throughout multiple airlines?
Yeah, traditionally through United, but definitely I've lost one on Alaska and then one on Delta as well.
Okay. And why didn't Delta let you negotiate?
I am unsure. And frankly, I'm still unhappy. Just simply because, they made a mistake. They lost my luggage. And as such, I expect, especially after such good experiences in working with United, I expect that they will right the wrong. And they just weren't even willing to discuss the option with me.
That's crazy. And that doesn't look good on them.
No, not at all. And I'm fairly basically outspoken about my experiences with Delta.
Yeah. Oh, no, it matters. And people want to know, I mean, that's why I said right away, which airline was it that took 7 days to get it to you, and, because I was also going to ask you if there are airlines that are, are there any airlines that are like the worst for losing your luggage? Like if it happens over and over, because in my experience, I the same as you, I fly almost exclusively with United, or at least whenever I get the chance to book the flight, but I have only lost my luggage on American, and it takes days every time. and it's been with American every time. So what do you think about that?
Like I said, I don't have much experience when it comes to American, but I know there's definitely airlines that are worse at certain aspects. And in the end, it's always the fault of the airline for losing your luggage. It doesn't matter how long your ground stay is. Like, their job is to get both you there safely and to get your basically luggage there safely.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So if they aren't doing their job, they deserve to basically compensate you for where they fell through. And so, I don't, like I said, I fly United almost exclusively, so I don't have a ton of experience when it comes to American, but I know in every area there's definitely, basically falling shorts of each one. I will say I've had more flights that have been canceled when flying on Delta. One day I sat in Salt Lake City for literally 12 hours, and I had 7 flights in a row to a major hub airport canceled.
That's crazy.
And so it's one of those that, I think every airline has its basically shortfalls.
Yeah.
But the real reason I fly United is because they're always willing to right that wrong.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing to note. I mean, customer service is really important. I guess it probably really does not matter because, like you said, they all have their shortfalls in different areas, but they also are all, I mean, we're all human. Like, everyone's prone to make mistakes, and so you probably can't pin it on one airline that would be the worst. But knowing that United is the best at helping is great. And I mean, American didn't even try. They didn't say anything because I would have been all about that probably if I wasn't so jet lagged and sick, So,
absolutely.
Yeah. But this is great that we're talking about what to do just in case, because now everyone's going to know what to do when this does happen. And so That's what I love. I really wish that I had known about this before. That was like in 2009. It was so long ago. And I mean, things change, but
absolutely. But I mean, I'll tell you, I lost bags in 2009, 10, and it's one of those that you're never immune to it. And it's simply because we're relying on humans, and even if we're relying on machines, it's still probably going to happen. But it's a matter of that airline stepping up and saying, hey, we messed up and we'd like to make it better.
Yeah. So do you have any tricks up your sleeve for not losing? For I mean, obviously you can carry on and then you're in control of your own stuff. But I mean, do you have any tricks for, so that the airline won't lose your luggage?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, I lost my luggage more when I was not a Premier member than when I was. When I was a Premier member, I lost my bags much, much less often. And one of the reasons is that they put that nice sticker on it.
The priority.
That says priority. That is a priority customer. And so that was really important. And even if it's not like the priority baggage sticker or, even if it's not from the airline, having some major color basically that just pops, I think makes it easier to just see your bag and then less likely to lose it. And I have started going almost entirely in carry-on. Just because, when I get to, China, I need to be on the ground and I need to be going within a couple hours. I don't have 6 days to wait for my bag because usually by 6 days I'll be in a different city. Yeah. And so, carry on. I really do advocate minimalize what you need to take. My last trip for 30 days, I took 3 basically pairs of shorts, a pair of jeans, 3 shirts, undergarments, and then all the stuff to make coffee. And aside from that, I didn't need a whole lot. You can buy a bar of soap in China. You can buy a toothbrush there. You can almost everywhere. And so, why not A, support their local economy, but B, not have to carry it, on the plane.
Yep. And little bottles of shampoo and stuff, you can get that there and not worry about liquids.
Absolutely. And chances are you're staying at a hotel or a hostel and they're going to have that there for you. And then it really expedites your time in the security line as well.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to set your bag down and not have to think, oh, do I have shampoo in the bottom? It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I am definitely a fan of packing light. I should have you do a guest post for packing for males for me.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah, so I think, so on the note about the Premier member, because I have status with United because I earned it, but I also have status because I have the credit card. And so if you're wondering a way to get the Premier access, I'm pretty sure you can get it with the credit card. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, what it does is it provides you, I want to say 2 bags. It's not true status. But what it does is it provides you 2, I believe 1 or 2 complimentary bags. And it's definitely a good thing, we'll say. So it provides 2 free bags, and then it's also early boarding, which is a pretty integral part of what you get with Premier status. What it doesn't provide is upgrades.
Right.
And that's what's nice about having full-blown status.
Okay,
is
right.
that especially flying out of small airports, I consider Bozeman one of those, your chances of getting upgraded at least to the next major hub is relatively high.
Yeah, no, actually the last several flights that I've just completed over the last few weeks, we got upgraded to first class on the way to Denver, my husband and I both, and I was upgraded to at least economy plus, which, it's better than nothing.
That 6 inches of leg room is a lifesaver.
Yeah. And I got upgraded to economy plus the entire way back from Florida, which was like 3 flights, which was really nice. So, but I guess that's kind of a different subject because you have to earn that one. But do you know with the, when you have the credit card with the priority boarding, etc., will they put that priority sticker on your bag?
I'm unsure.
That's a maybe, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say that's a solid maybe.
Because I get it with the status, so I don't know the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll come right back to that. Let's take a moment now to thank our wonderful show sponsors. Osprey is the market leader in technical outdoor, travel, and everyday packs. And I've personally used Osprey packs since 2015. My favorites are the Fairview Trek 50 for multi-day hikes, the Cirrus 24 for day hikes, the Transporter Rolling Duffel 60, which is my trusty check luggage for faraway adventures, and of course, the countless packing cubes I use to organize everything that goes in them. We are proud to support each other on the podcast and beyond. We love getting outside, and we want to see more people outdoors. So find out more and join us at osprey.com.
Exactly.
Well, that could be a way to get it, possibly, if you guys are wondering how you can possibly get it if you don't have a lot of miles, or if you don't fly a lot. Look into the credit cards for the airlines that you fly often and see if they'll provide that priority sticker for you, because they won't lose your luggage if you have that priority tag. I mean, at least that's my impression, is that they care extra for those bags.
They do. Yeah. And basically, even if it's, if it is because you're a card holder or it's because you fly so much, they really do take that extra time to make sure that your luggage gets there. And, the same is with basically your call center. The Premier line is, in my opinion, the greatest thing that's ever happened with United. You talk to, a great lady named, Charisse in South Carolina, and she is really caring to make sure that you get your bag.
Right.
And then, say you miss a connection, they are doubly trying to get you on the next plane, whether it's a United plane or they have to pay for, what it's basically a code share. They're willing to go the extra mile because you take the extra mile and only fly, one airline or, one alliance.
Yeah. And on that note, so you're suggesting no matter what your issue is, it's better to call?
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, you need to fill out a form online. And I'll tell you, my experiences with the online submissions have not been good on any airline. And so I always, yes, submit it to make them happy, but then get on the phone and call, because it's the only way you're going to get their constant attention is to call.
Okay. This is such good advice.
And I mean, I think it's pretty basic in that, when you're working with people naturally want to help other people.
Right.
And so, I've never had someone be, treat me as if I wasn't worth the time on the phone. Whereas getting an email, you're going into an inbox, and we all know how long we can sit in inboxes.
Yeah, exactly. So there is one more tip that I'm going to add here, which I think is kind of crazy, but have you heard of Timothy Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week?
I have a little bit, but I don't know much about it, frankly.
Okay. So he also wrote a book called The 4-Hour Chef, which I definitely recommend anyway. It has nothing to do with this really, but he does share a tip in it that's, it's something I've never thought of before, but he said it's the surefire way to make sure your bag arrives every single time. He said he's been using it for years and it's never failed him. And, what it is there is a specific type of firearm that you're allowed to check into your bag, and they're like not expensive. I don't know what kind of gun it is. Like it might be even airsoft, or I'm not sure, but whatever it is, you have to declare it. Even though it's not considered like it must not have real ammo or something. I'm maybe messing up the facts a little bit here, but it's definitely in this book and you can look it up if you want. But he said, because you have to declare it and because it's listed as like a weapon or something, the authorities like keep extra care, like they keep track of your bag because they know what's in it. And so he just packs this, like, it's like a fake gun of some sort. Maybe, I don't even remember what kind. I should have looked it up before I mentioned this, but he packs it in his bag and it gets there every time. He said it's never failed him. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So
yeah, that's dedication right there. Sometimes I'd rather just take the vouchers.
Oh man, the vouchers, so they sound amazing. And also if you're worried about your bag getting lost, like if you already know ahead of time that you have a short connection and that there's a possibility that your bag might not make it, if you're barely going to make it, and in that case, I would say go prepared with your carry-on, pack an extra change of clothes in your carry-on just so you have that to get you started just in case.
Absolutely. Well, you know what they say about Delta, don't expect luggage to arrive.
Oh, gosh.
And that, I would say that in many cases, always have a carry-on that has your basic essentials. Because then no matter what happens, you always at least have a change of clothes. You always at least have your toothbrush or whatever you need. You can buy a toothbrush anywhere, but anything you consider essential, carry it with you.
Exactly.
Because, the lost luggage happens whenever it's least convenient, I've found. And so you always want to make sure you are ready and prepared regardless of if your luggage makes it with you. Yeah.
And, one more thing to add on top of that, this is what I learned from the time that my bag got left in Denver, because I think that was my first layover on that long trip to Italy from the West Coast. And what had happened was I think that they mistagged it. And so every single time I check a bag from now on, I will make them stop and show me the tag before they put it on the little belt and make sure that it has your actual final destination and not like just one of your layovers on there. Because at least then it's correct in the system for the first step.
Yeah. And, one thing I would add, and I just remembered this from another time, I was flying with which is kind of a backpack, the traveler's backpack. And it ended up getting stuck in the conveyor belt. And so I went without my bag for maybe 3 days. And the reason it got stuck was because I hadn't either taped down my actual kind of the backpack straps. And so if you have any straps, make sure they're taped down to where they won't get caught on something.
It's actually a great point.
And it's something that, I would have thought, oh man, that's easy to think about, but I didn't.
Right. Actually, I do that every single time. And one of the ways you can do that with a travel backpack is that bottom strap, that's the big one that goes around your waist. You can wrap that the wrong direction around the entire pack so that it fits snug and isn't, sticking out. And then definitely any of the extra straps, just tuck them in, make sure everything is pulled tight and then tuck in all those loose straps so that you don't. That's crazy that actually happened to you.
Yeah, and it's one of those I would have never thought, to strap those down. But yeah, I got stuck in a conveyor belt in good old Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh my gosh.
So when I was in San Francisco and my bag was in Iowa,
Yeah.
it was, and it took a while for them to find it. It wasn't a one-day fix. It was a several-day adventure. And in the end, I mean, it was my fault. Yet United still provided a voucher because it took them too long.
That's nice. Yeah. Did they actually have to like crawl into the conveyor belt and find it? Like
they did.
Oh,
I guess
that's
they had
crazy.
to shut it down. The
Yeah.
major conveyor belt, they had to shut it down for like an hour to get it.
Wow.
I felt so bad for the guy. His name was Steve, so shout out to Steve in Des Moines. But it
cool.
was the poor guy. I mean, yeah, had to crawl in there and get it himself.
Oh man. Well, okay. You guys heard it first. That actually happens. So strap down your your straps. Tape down your straps. So moving on from the losing the luggage part of things, what about, do you have any experience with getting bumped from flights or, because I know that there's negotiations involved with that too. So do you know about that?
Absolutely. That's, it's one of the things, and it sounds kind of strange, but I always prefer to be bumped unless I have something big going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I work remotely, I can work anywhere. And so, whether I'm sitting in Denver in a nice airport that they put me up in or in Bozeman, unless I have a meeting, it makes no difference. And so I'm usually definitely looking to get bumped because you either get cash vouchers, they'll usually put you up in a hotel. It's a good deal.
Mm-hmm. The last time that I just flew out of Bozeman, actually, they had overbooked the flight and they started by offering $400. This is United.
Mm-hmm.
And they started by offering $400 to whoever would, take to get bumped. They needed like multiple people. And after a few minutes, apparently nobody went up to the desk because they came back on the intercom with like this desperate voice and said, okay, guys, we're offering $500. We're just, everyone's like, oh my gosh. And we're just thinking if only, like there's always, there has to be some reason why we can't take this. And, there was for me as well, but that would have been so nice to just say, yeah, I'll take the $500. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. And, and that's one thing I would definitely mention is that, definitely watch. If someone else looks like they're going up, then make sure you get on the list, because if you have a flexible schedule, it's awesome. I mean, you more or less get your flight paid for by simply offering to go a little later. Sometimes it's even the same day. And so I would watch and see if anyone else is going up. Try to be the first or second to sign up. But if no one else is going up, hold out a little bit. And, it may cause a little stress to where that number goes from 200 or 300 to, 400 or 500. And, a lot of times if they're desperate, they'll put you up in a hotel that night. They'll give you meal vouchers. They're willing to make it work because otherwise they have to forcefully do that. If they're overbooked, someone's not getting on the airplane, and that's whether they want to or not. So it's either they have poor customer service or they have great customer service at the end of the day. The situation's occurring, you might as well make the best of it and get the best deal out of it.
And what should you get out of it? Because if they're like just this last example I just said, if they're offering $500 vouchers and I went up and said, I'll do it. I'll take the $500 voucher. Mm-hmm. Should I stop there and say, but I need a hotel voucher and I need meal vouchers? I mean, in this case, I was in my hometown, so technically that's not true. But where should we take the negotiations from there?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, if you're in a town that is unlike your own, make that request. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've slept in an airport or two that can't always fulfill it, but they will usually try their best. So they aren't basically responsible as to what they give away. It's not like it's coming out of their paycheck. And so it's a matter of they're usually pretty willing to negotiate with you if it means that, they're going to be able to basically accomplish the task of dwindling down 76 to 75 or whatever they need to reach. And so they're usually pretty willing to work with you. And so just make the request, be one thing I always encourage when it comes to working with the airlines, be friendly. You might be stressed out, but they are too, because it's not their fault. It's not the agent's fault that they overbooked. You know, they are simply trying to make your experience better. And so, you know, I would definitely request that if it's needed, definitely request it. And then, you know, sometimes it's all about making sure they know, look, this is an inconvenience, but I'm willing to be inconvenienced. You know, it's a hesitant yes, not an excited yes. Never be too chipper about losing your seat. You know? because then they're going to be like, well, he doesn't care. We'll give him $300 and he'll be happy. You know, sometimes I don't want to say over exaggerate the significance, but in a way you have to. You have to say, like, this is inconvenient, but out of the inconvenience, I appreciate what you're willing to do.
That's really important. Yeah. Wow. This is awesome. I kind of can't believe, I kind of can't believe I haven't had this conversation with someone like ever, you know, in all of my travels. I've never really looked into how I should go about negotiating with airlines when things happen like this. And I think this is really like important, and it's like basic knowledge that everyone should know, because we all travel. Whether it's international or home for Christmas, like we all travel. So
exactly. And, you know, one thing I will mention, a lot of your, you know, what we would consider budget airlines are less willing to do any of this. Because it's not necessarily, when people are looking for the lowest airline price, a lot of times they're willing to basically give up some of the customer service. And it's one reason why I always encourage people, you know, fly major airlines when you can and really try to build up status with one airline. Or if not one airline, at least one basically alliance. Because once you've built up that reputation that, look, even if bad things happen, even if you lose my luggage or I get bumped, I'm still going to fly because I know you'll take care of me.
Right.
And so, you know, there will be flights, you know, even this year that I look not just for the cheapest flight, but I look for the most cost-effective flight on United or on another member basically of the Star Alliance.
Right.
Because, you know, when you're flying on, you know, whether it be Air China or any of the other, you know, airlines, like if you are someone that they see flies them often or flies their friends often, I usually consider it like, you know, they're just friends with each other. You know, when you're flying them often, they want to take care of you because they know next time you're going to give their business to them as well.
Right.
And so rather than hopping from airline to airline, and I mean, you can get some good deals on Expedia or cheap tickets, and they're great, but I usually use those as research. So I see what the going price is, and then I go back to, you know, my traditional airline or some of its alliance members, and I look for the best one within the alliance. Because those come up, you know, when they see that I've flown, you know, 40,000 miles with them in a year, they're going to make sure they take good care of me. If they see I've flown there 600 miles in the past 5 years, you know, they don't expect you to come back. They expect you to hop to the next cheapest flight, wherever that, you know, may be. And so, you know, trying to really build up alliance and basically that kind of allegiance to one airline, like it's great for everyone. It's great for them because they know they can count on you. And then it's great for you because when things go wrong, they're willing to go to bat for you.
Yes, I love that. You just said a bunch of things that I wanted to touch on. One of them, the fact that you use Expedia and Kayak, etc. for research is exactly one of the tips that I like to tell. And then, you know, book your flight through the airline directly once you find, you know, I mean, because usually you can even find an entire flight from Kayak or something and it's United the whole way. So why would you book on Kayak? Go back to United. And I did a podcast episode, I think it was episode 11. I'll link to that because for everybody listening, because that's where I share my secrets to booking the cheapest flight out there. I've actually gotten so much feedback on that episode alone of people saying, hey, I saved on my flight thanks to this. You know, I'm like, this is awesome. We all need to take advantage of the system. them, but the other thing you said, I have a question about, when, say, for example, you're on a United flight that sends you on Lufthansa, once you get overseas, and Lufthansa does something, would you call Lufthansa or would you call your United line still? You know what I mean?
If they are working through Lufthansa, call United, because that's your code share. You are technically flying on a United seat, and they are code sharing with Lufthansa. So if you booked it with United, get a hold of United, and especially because they're the ones who's actually receiving the money for your flight.
Okay.
And then code shares, it's kind of, it's like letting someone use your car, right? You let someone use it, and then like they let you use theirs, down the road. And so, it's a good way to fill seats. But in the end, United or whoever the airline you're flying with, they're the person you're giving your money to. And so call them first. And then if they're not doing anything, that's when you get a hold of Lufthansa. That's where you kind of right that wrong with that airline.
Yeah. Perfect. This is so great. I feel so prepared. Like if this is going to happen again to me, it's just pick up a phone, get in touch with somebody.
Yeah, get a hold of someone and like I said, make sure they know that it's an inconvenience, because it is. Not having, an extra pair of underwear is really inconvenient. Gross it many times. So it's one of those that make sure they know how inconvenient it is, but also say, I'm willing to work with you, and this isn't the end of our business together.
Okay.
Like, never threaten that, I'll never fly United again, because then they have no reason to really make it right.
Right.
They have a reason to make it right if they know that you're going to, if you're going to help them out.
Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense. Well, this has been awesome. Do you have anything else to add, or is there anything else you wanted to say about any of this?
Not about that, but I would just say, get out, explore, and again, if you do lose your bag, like, it's not the end of the world. It's inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. And just make sure that you're kind to the representatives. I mean, I've had some really go to bat for me, and if I would have been rude, I can't imagine they would have done the same. Mm-hmm. Be friendly, be kind, be compassionate, because they're in an equally bad situation, because they didn't make the problem, but they have to fix it. Mm-hmm. And so be nice to your flight attendants, and be nice to your agents.
That's great advice. Well, thank you so much. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your website, just in case anybody wants to look into what you're doing with the China and coffee and all the cool things you have going on.
Absolutely. You can definitely check it out. You can go to goodworksorphancare.org, or if you're interested in coffee or tea, go to drinkgoodworks.com. Awesome.
Cool. Well, Sam, thank you again so much. And I guess happy travels, and we'll be sharing some stuff, hopefully, in the comments section on the show notes page about stories and successes from all your advice. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I'll be sure to chime in on comments. If anyone has questions, feel free to let me know.
Wonderful.
And I'll do my best to chime in.
Awesome. That's great. We appreciate that. All right. Absolutely. We'll chat with you soon, okay?
Yep. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. All right. I just loved that interview. I really learned a lot. And like I said, I couldn't believe that I haven't had this conversation with someone before. But now you all have had it too. And so we can all be prepared going forward to, keep track of our bags, or at least know what to do when they do get lost. And I did want to bring up the fact that I looked up the advice by Tim Ferriss that I had mentioned about how he brings a firearm in his checked luggage. And someone actually did an interview with him about it. So I am going to link to that on the show notes page. But yeah, it clarifies it, and it's a starter pistol that he brings. He says they're cheap, and they don't use bullets, and you can get them on Amazon or in sporting goods stores, and then you just declare them, and you have to use a specific TSA lock, but that the airline keeps track of your bag. So that's what that's all about, and I'm going to link to it in the show notes page so you can see all of the, the regulations around that, if that is interesting to you. So you can find that and other information, tips and advice, things from this episode on the show notes page at thebudgetmindedtraveler.com/33. And in the meantime, Happy New Year again to everybody. I hope that you've made some good travel resolutions for 2015 and that you can actually make those happen this year. And actually just on my Facebook page, if you're part of my Facebook page, I just posed the question, what are your travel goals for 2015? And we had so many awesome responses. So good for you guys. I'm so excited for all of your travels for this year. And if you haven't liked me on Facebook yet, head on over to the Budget Minded Traveler on Facebook and join the conversation there. So that's it for today. Thanks you guys so much for tuning in wherever you are across the world. And I'll talk to you guys again soon.